Yumays, welcome back to My Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Another day, another interview, and a fantastic day it is, and a fantastic interview it will be. I've got Yumay Chang again with me, and Yumay and I share so many passions. It's actually a little bit scary because we tick in so many levels. We tick on in the same heartbeat here. It's beautiful. And today we will talk about something either very beautiful or something very, very evil in some people's belief, because we're talking money, money. And why do we talk about it? Well, it's very simple. Many people out there are in situations that they absolutely hate. They do not want to be in that situation. Let it be in the extreme form. Let it be in an abusive relationship. And one of the things that most abusers will do, they will limit your access to money. So therefore, you cannot leave out of this relationship. You're often enough, the women that end up in women's refuge have got nothing. They have got literally a T-shirt on and some pants on, and that's all their possessions. So this is an extreme version. But how many people out there are unsatisfied, are disillusioned with their job? They would love to quit their job either due to toxic relationships in the setting or bullying, etc. And what is the common answer? No, they can't leave, because where's the money coming from? Who's paying the rent? Who's paying the mortgage? So these are the key driving things for us as human beings. We need some food on our plate, and for that we need money. So today, let's actually address that. Let's actually talk about money, honest to heart. And who better to talk to than Yumay? Because you have at a very early stage in your life recognized that you need money to get out of your situation. So welcome back on my show, Yumay.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. I'm excited to be back again.
And indeed, I mean, remind us, for those viewers who haven't seen the first episode of our interview, you were at a very early stage introduced to the need to look after yourself. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, of course. So for those of you that don't know me, typically I'm a tech manager. So I manage people for Silicon Valley companies. That's what I've been doing for the last 20 or so years. But what people don't know is that I came to this country, the United States, at age 20. I had no money. I didn't know anybody. I came here for graduate school at Stanford. So that's how I got started. So I feel like if I could make it, anybody can. But it takes a certain level of mindset and a certain level of discipline to get there. But it's definitely very doable. And I'm glad that we're doing this conversation, because a lot of times people are not educated about money or finances. And then later in life, they do not have the options that you spoke about. And what breaks my heart more than anything is to see people that are stuck in relationships where they're not happy, they're being abused potentially. And their children oftentimes are being abused as well. They want to leave, they're emotionally ready to leave, and yet they're unable to due to the lack of finances. So back to your question, I grew up in Taiwan. My father is a professor and my mom is a homemaker. So she ended up in a situation where she had 3 kids and my father was very abusive. She herself was abusive as well, but that's a different story. But she did at some point wanted to leave my father. And then one of the things, besides the trauma bonding, which they call Stockholm syndrome, that was keeping her, the other aspect that filled her with a lot of fear is she doesn't know how to make a living. So my father was the sole bread owner. So very early on, when my sister and I were toddlers, my mom told us, you guys have to always make sure that you're independent, that you're financially independent. And one day when you can, you need to save mommy, right? There's all sorts of things wrong with that advice, as in she's relinquishing her role as the parent and making us her parent to save her. But setting that aside, the fact that she advised us to be independent so that we don't walk her footstep, that definitely left an imprint in me. And very early on as a child, when you're stuck in an abusive family where your parents are not doing anything about it, they're the abusers, you can't leave, you can't get a job, you can't move out. So I lived for the first decades or so of my life in that environment where I cannot be independent. So I know what it feels like. And that was part of what propelled me to do everything I can to excel in school and to leave for the United States as soon as I can. So I actually started college when I was just 16 years old. A lot of that is driven by my desire to leave home as soon as possible. So I think a lot of times when kids are trying to make that decision, how do I get out of here as soon as possible? There's, on a oversimplified terms, there's two ways. One is that you can just bust out, right? You can go homeless, you can go get some menial job. A lot of people choose that way. I certainly considered it. The other option is to, let's bear the abuse and then try to compartmentalize the pain and then focus on the studies and then kind of plan for the longer term. And that's the route that I chose. It has pluses and minuses, obviously. The minus is that you get so good at compartmentalizing emotions, you have trouble feeling again. So that's something that I had to spend quite a bit of time to relearn. But the benefit of it is that you do have the ability to then lead a fairly good life if you're willing to do the work to heal yourself and then get smart and just make sure that you lay out a plan so that you are financially independent. I think being financially independent does make a lot of things much easier.
100%. And I think that is something that many people in this world have actually forgotten how to do that. That has been bred out of us. If you go 2, 3, 4 generations back, where people were living off the land to a certain degree, where money was not growing on trees, where there was not as much consumerism, it was absolutely normal that you would try to save, that you would try to have a nest egg, because you never knew what the next season would bring, if your crops would fail or whatsoever. So it was far more normal, it was far more natural for our ancestors to work with money and work with what they got. And that to a certain degree nowadays with credit cards and with all the pressure that people put themselves under is so crazy. You have forgotten the key lessons of survival, in disaster preparedness. For everything that is crucial for you, that your life depends on, you want to have 3 independent sources. So 3 independent sources of water, fire, shelter, food. Full stop. These are the rules. If you have only 2 or 1, chances are you will not make it. So that is in the wilderness, that is in general disaster preparedness. Yet, when you look at your finances, who is actually preparing themselves in such a way? For most of us, it's certainly when I was brought up, my parents had no idea. They didn't teach me about money. It was all consumerism. You need to look good. You need to have that jacket. You need to drive that car. That was what mattered. So with you, I mean, every young woman has the temptation. You want to look good. You want to go out there. You want to be accepted by your friends, who often enough hang around in malls and buy things they don't want to have. How did you deal with that?
I think when people are hit with a hardship, right? I grew up without much material resources. And the reason isn't because we were actually poor. My father's a professor. He makes a reasonable amount of money. So we should have been living a middle class life. But my parents are on the very extreme end of thriftiness, as in, I would say it's borders abuse and control, as in they give us very old clothes to wear. Like I'm talking about 20 years past its time. So when I was growing up in the 1980s as a teenager, I was forced to wear clothes from the 1960s that they got from places like Salvation Army. So that doesn't set you up very well to be the most popular kid in school. But that aside, I think you can take away different meanings out of that experience. For my siblings and I, what we took out of it is that we can live on very little. As in, yes, it is nice to be able to wear normal clothes and fit in, but yet we also don't identify our value with the kind of bag I have, the kind of car I drive, et cetera. I don't value other people that way. And therefore, I also do not value myself that way. And having that mindset, I think, really helps, right? So, for example, I could spend $30 a week getting my nails done, or I can spend that money on gym membership and actually look good. I always offer it later. So I think having the mindset of a longer term thinking is pretty important when it comes to money, right? If I save that $30 a day and I invest it at 10% interest, I mean, at the compound in stock markets, it grows to be a very significant amount. A lot of times people overlook the small money, but the small money really does matter. Just use a compound interest calculator and put the numbers in. For example, if you buy a $200 bag, a lot of people buy a $200 bag, $200 shoes, you put on a credit card. A credit card runs anywhere from about 18% to 26% compounded daily. So that $200 debt, if you don't pay it in 5 years, it will be over 500. I think it's like $550. So you're paying almost over 2 times for that thing. Is it really worth it? The other thing to consider is that money is very interesting because of compound interest rate. The money that you save when you're younger is worth that much more than when you save $1 when you're older. Because that money is able to compound 10% every year for much longer, right? The $1 that I save when I'm 20 and I compound it to when I'm 70 years old, that's 50 years of money rolling and snowballing. So you really want to save early. That makes a huge difference. And then by saving, it also means, do I really need that additional pair of shoes? And then think about also, how often do you care? If, Stefan, oh yeah, I've seen, you have only 7 pairs of jeans. Oh, I could tell that you only have 7 pairs of jeans. Who knows? Do we even know how many pairs of jeans that a person wears? So just buy a nice pair where you look good, right? And don't buy the other, gazillion pairs, and save that money and invest it. A lot of times we spend money on things that simply do not matter. And if people are coming to you because they like your car, the car that you drive, would they still be around if you need them? And then what's the use of having these people follow you around if they're not real friends?
I could not agree more. I was brought up on the wrong side of the tracks as well, and there was never much money around. Having said that, it became counterproductive whilst the focus was actually purely on money, on looking good, on striving to be seen as having money. There was actually no education how to save or how to gain extra money or how to make money. It was intriguing because I was brought up, you work hard. So I went to school, and then afterwards I had a job stacking wood or doing whatever I did. So, and that started from age 14 onwards. So work is certainly not foreign to me, on the contrary, but it's intriguing to see the lessons that you have learned compared with the lessons that I have learned, coming from not as bad a background, but not too dissimilar at the same token. My money went into, it's actually hard to say, where did the money go? And that's probably like many other people out there are, where is this money gone? You have not much to show for. It is, what the hell? And that is where, indeed, actually, to do a budget, to do a meticulous inventory of what is happening in your life becomes such a powerful thing. To actually spend a weekend, go through your finances, cent for cent, outgoing for outgoing. And suddenly you realize, you really know this pizza delivery man really, really well, don't you? Or there's all these kind of things. It is, but we often don't do that exercise. Nowadays, I do that at least once a year, to do meticulously, really, I mean, to the cent, going through, and it is surprising what little aha moments I get when I do that. Do you do that? Do you do inventory, or is that not something that you subscribe to?
I believe that's a very useful exercise for most people. I am so ingrained into, because I'm an engineer and I'm also a very numbers focused person. I actually think about it pretty much as part of just being alive. So I don't need to actually go and review it, but I think for many people, it's a very, very useful exercise.
Mm.
And for example, you were just mentioning some of the recurring payments people don't even notice, right? If you're subscribing to, say, YouTube Red, you're subscribing to Netflix and Disney, et cetera, do you really need to subscribe to all of them? Are you really able to watch all of them? If not, cancel it, because that's money that's constantly bleeding out when you're just sleeping. Another thing is, for example, phone bills, internet bills, et cetera. They're very negotiable. Some people don't know that, but if you just say, hey, it's too expensive, I might be moving from AT&T, I'm going to move to T-Mobile. All of a sudden, the salespeople get very creative. They're like, oh, no, we got this new plan we can put you on. It'll save you $20 a month. That's recurring. You save money in your sleep. So watch for the recurring charges and try to save those. You can also negotiate your credit card balances. I know that sometimes they would be willing to drop the APR, et cetera. So a lot of things in life are negotiable. So negotiate those recurring things. Another thing is to absolutely spend the time to negotiate on the large purchases. But sometimes I would see these people like, coupon clipping, save $1 when you buy like 10 rolls of toilet paper. Is it worth the time? I would say, unless you're really in a dire straits, it's probably not worth your time, right? That time, use it to negotiate the big purchases. I'm talking about when you buy a car, you can easily save like 5 to 10 grand, easily just by buying the same make and model and call comparison. Like when I bought my car, if possible, buy it used, because as soon as a car drives out a lot, it loses like 20%, right? Just buy it used if you can, and make sure that you get a person who's mechanically inclined, or bring it to the shop to make sure that it's mechanically sound. But then if you have to buy new, it's actually really easy to save as well. There are sites like TrueCar that tells you the prices that different people pay for the same car. You could also, what I did was I called about 15 dealerships. I don't even show up in a dealership, because why show up in a dealership and have them waste hours of your time trying to sell you finance plans and et cetera, do their sales technique. I do sales for a living. I literally just tell them, I'm a seller, don't sell to me. I don't want to waste your time. I already know roughly what the car is worth. Give me your best offer. And this is what I'm doing. I'm calling 14 other shops to do comparisons. And some shop will be willing to sell it for you for a better price. And then you could easily save a couple $1,000s just by spending an hour. So spend the hour there. Don't spend the hour coupon clipping is my recommendation. I think a lot of people forget to negotiate the big items, and they spend all their time negotiating small items. Another one that makes an even bigger difference is the house. If you end up buying a house, right, first of all, you want to buy low and sell high. That's, there's a ton of techniques there. But let's say that you nailed a house and you want to get a mortgage. A percentage points difference in a mortgage is absolutely immense. And oftentimes people don't think about shopping for different mortgages, right? It's basically different lending rates. So I think my Uber point is save where it matters, save on the recurring, because it's a constant bleed out, and then save on the really big items.
So true.
Those are the areas.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
But here you're saying, you and I use the word negotiate. And guys, let's be quite clear out there. It's not so common that I paid a price that is actually allocated in a little piece of cardboard. It's probably not so common that I do that, because I will virtually always say, okay, look, I need that. So because I'm using 2 free items here, is that really the best price you can give me? And by just asking that question, is that the best price you can give me? You will be amazed how many people say, well, actually, no. And especially if you have built up a relationship in your life with a certain shop or a certain branch where people know you, you will be amazed how much markup there is and how much they are willing to actually keep you as a customer, because it's your money. Okay, you are not doing them a favor somehow. No. Yes, do you have an incredible power because on your card or in your hands, there is that money which they need to survive. So therefore, don't accept 100% markup, which is not so uncommon out there in the retail. Actually say, no, hang on, no. I would like to have 10 of these bars, of these protein bars. So come on, knock 10% off or something like that. And you will be amazed. But for that, you need to grow the emotional balls or ovaries for that matter, to actually go out there and say, no, this is my money. Why the hell should I give it to you just because you put that price on there? What would you say to people who are shy, who say, oh, no, I could never go into that shop and ask for a reduced price?
I think the important thing is to be nice about it, right? This is a free market. When you think about the market economy, a seller is not forced to sell you. Right? Just because you say, hey, could you give me a discount? The seller doesn't have to say, oh, I have to give you that discount. I have to sell it to you, Stefan. No, they have choices too. So the only reason they would say yes to a deal is if it's beneficial to them. And in fact, that's a good way to think about it is a deal is struck when it's a win-win. So let's say that I go into, I call a dealership and I want to get a car at a good price. Sometimes I would say, hey, I'm a very informed buyer. I will not waste your time. I know exactly the specs I need. The money is ready. I'm the super clear-cut case. All I care about is the price. What is the best price you can give me? So in the back of their mind, they're like, okay, I probably cannot make very much money off this lady. However, she's also a quick customer. She has very good credit. She has the money to pay for it. It will be a quick deal. It saves me time. And the time I save, I can use to drive a sale on another customer. So also always put yourself in the other person's shoes to see what benefit can I give you? That's, fundamental to all business relationship. Do not just think about yourself. Like, I want that discount. What can you provide that company, right? Like, for example, if you help me with this one, I could, refer you another customer. That is worth a lot to a merchant. So what are the things that you could put on the table to sweeten the deal for them? That's what I would focus on as well.
Indeed. And that is the intriguing thing. So whilst I was saying that I can be quite harsh in haggling and bargaining, it is true that if someone has never met you and comes over very, very bulgy and you're a seller and he says, no, I want 20% off. And just sort of like, hey, it is my right to have 20% off. Immediately my hackers would go up and I said, yeah, okay, if you can just go, thank you. So again, make it pleasant. And it is the art of negotiation. But that is something that you should never feel shy about. It is a gentle communication, and it is like a beautiful dance that can be. So you don't need to be afraid. It's like a tango. You go back and forth, etc. And hopefully at the end, both of you have got a smile on your face, the seller and the buyer, because you actually had a good time in going through the motions, and you both got something out of it. So that's a very wise point that you made there.
Yeah, it's good practice. Like, for example, when I traveled in Brazil, I could barely speak Portuguese, and I learned a few words. Like, if I buy two, could you give me a discount, right? I'm offering something, which is I will buy two. And that just tickled them silly, because they're like, well, there's this, silly American tourist that's speaking fine and funny Portuguese, but yet she cared enough to speak in our language. So they were having so much fun that they were throwing in earrings for me, like just free. And I would go home and my Brazilian friends are like, oh my God, how did you get this deal? I was like, I have no idea. All I did was I spoke like really broken Portuguese and people were laughing and I just got all this stuff. So part of the deal is also making sure that the transaction is enjoyable for both people, because life is really short, right? It isn't about like cutting it down to the bare bones. Some people believe that they have to extract every possible drop of blood out of the other side. That's not true. That's not the way to do business. Because guess what? You buy a car, later it's going to require some maintenance. Something's going to go wrong. The relationship itself is worth preserving as well. So as you negotiate, also make sure that both sides are having fun. It's a win-win. But you don't, like you said, you don't have to just say, "Hey, I'll pay you whatever you ask for." That's not true either. It's a negotiation.
I had to love you because one of my best friends is a master negotiator, but in a really brutal sense. So if he buys a car, God, they throw money at him to just get out of the shop because he is so brutal, and he's sucking every single thing out. And with that, he has got fantastic deals. But yes, I hear very much. I don't think that the people are really so glad about that deal. They are so glad when the deal is over and he's out. So
I think people have that, kind of burn the bridges attitude in life. May succeed on that particular deal, but they will not succeed overall in life. Because when you have good relationship with people, it comes back to you in different ways that you cannot predict.
Is it not?
For example, the best jobs that I have, I don't apply for jobs, right? I did not apply for the job that I have at Google, managing a global team. And my VP of engineering from my first job, like 20 years ago, knows a friend at Google, and they pulled me in. Like, that's how things happen. And I get contacted by Facebook, also by other contacts. I just don't know. It just comes out. And somebody from my past said, I want you to talk to this lady. And how much are these opportunities worth? How do you put a number to it?
Well, that's what people say. That is, there's a beautiful saying that I cannot immediately recall, along the lines of, you remember 10% that you read, 20% that you hear, etc., but you remember 100% how someone has made you feel.
Yes.
And that is so crucial, is it not, to actually be there? And we see that now, because I certainly have supported shops during the quarantine and during COVID the last year, where I on purpose went out to spend some money and did not negotiate, did not ask for the extremely better price, because I knew this shop is on the brink of potentially closing. They need every cent they want. And they know me, and normally that I do ask for discounts, and I just paid the full price. And that has come already back to me. There is the relationship with the owners of these shops has clearly come to fruition, and it's beautiful. So very true. You need to make that call in your life. So whilst this is all about money, part of money is also charity. And virtually every religion in this world says give 10% of your income to those in need. And you may subscribe to a religion, or you might be completely atheist. It is still the issue of karma. It is still the issue of being a good person who is trying to support others who are in need. And you never know what comes back. That's not why you should do it, but it is a beautiful thing to do that as well. And guess what? If you're driven to be a good person and you want to help others, how better than to make money and create wealth so that you have more to give away? Yes. So, and that is something, I mean, what would you say to people who say, oh, money, I hate money. It is evil. It is not something that I don't need money to live. No, people who are focused on money, they're bad. What would you say about that?
I think money is an energy, right? If you don't have money, then you're dependent on somebody. Either you're a ward of the state or you're a ward of somebody else. Especially for people that are in narcissistic abuse. Narcissists usually or like to use money to control you because it directly ties to your survival. You can't live without money. You have to have money to buy food and shelter and to take care of your children. So I think fundamentally, as an adult, we all have to strive for being able to be independent. Even if I decided to stay at home and take care of children, have a small business on the side. I know a lady, Kelly, she actually sponsors Life is Love School with inner child dolls. And she raises a few very young children. And when the kids go to bed at night, she then starts to crochet inner child dolls and sells it, right? And so there are different ways that you could, even if you decide to stay at home and take care of children, that you could remain independent. Or if, something bad happens, God forbid, the husband is hit by a bus, that you are able to be strong and be there for your children. So always being able to be independent if need be is very important. Never relinquish that. That's part of your personal power.
Absolutely.
So the other part that I always teach people in Life is Love School is you have to show self-love by how you care for yourself. If I love myself, I would invest myself, right? That means it could mean like invest in self-care. It can also mean investing in education, right? And then the other part of it, which is very much invest, is pay yourself first. I don't know if you've heard that saying before. A lot of people pay other people first. I will pay Louis Vuitton first. I will pay, Starbucks first for my latte, but there's nothing left to pay me. Yeah. What I mean by pay me is even before that paycheck enters your savings or checking account, it directly goes to an investment account. And it directly, automatically invests in a low-cost index fund. That is probably the best investment vehicle out there. It's super easy. Every investment bank offers that because that's your doorbuster. Sort of like a grocery store that offers milk and banana at a discount for people to get in. You'd be stupid to not buy it. And it's almost like you would be stupid to buy anything otherwise. If you were to ask Warren Buffett what to invest, he would say that as well, right? Unless you are Warren Buffett and you spend 24/7 in the past 60 years studying stocks to try to find every little advantage, your best bet is to have that money work for you by being in a broadly diversified, low-cost index fund and use automatic investment to your power. So you never see the money. That money, like $500, $50, $5, whatever you can put in there, goes to the investment directly. You don't see it. It doesn't burn in your pocket. You don't spend it. And then once the money is in there, do not touch it. Let it grow. Let it snowball. So it grows while you're sleeping. Think about most people, or I'm just saying across the US, most people dream about having $1 million, but that's actually easier than you think. If you can only spare $50 a month, that will take you 53 years. If you can spare $400 a month, you'll get there in 32 years. You'll have $1 million. If you could put more, you could put 800 or so in about 25 years, you'll have $1 million. With $1 million, you can move to a lot of places, right? Maybe not the Bay Area. Actually in the Bay Area too, if you're willing to say, be in a shared space, like rent a room in a house, you can make do, no problem. But with $1 million sitting, collecting about 10% a year, and that's fairly conservative. Right? That's $100,000. $100,000 you pay taxes. Let's say that, just to be really conservative, you have $70,000 left. Everybody can survive off of that. Right. And then let's say that you don't put it in stocks. You put it in like a bond, very conservative, like a US bond, 5%. You'll still have $50,000 of income a year. You could survive easily on that. At that point, you're financially free.
And that's exactly it, isn't it? What you have just described, because you have got that money, which makes you money, off which you live. And provided you don't go out and blow it on stupid things, then there you are. And it's quite interesting that you use that number, 1 million. I'm certainly working on about 2 million that I want to be creating me the money and the flow on effect, because I want to have that buffer. I want to have certainly, there will be emergencies. The kids, something will happen to the kids and I need to bail them out or help them in some kind of way. It's those kind of things. So indeed, 2 is 1, 1 is none. Again, the principle of free in survival, it's the same here. Yes, don't cut it too slim, but actually see what you can achieve. And we come back to where we were initially. What are these little quiet outgoings, the bleedings that you don't even know that are there? The gym membership where you actually haven't been to the gym for the last 3 months, and something like that. So either you say, I actually invest the time in me, and I will go to the gym, or you have to say, well, hang on, I haven't seen the gym for 3 months. Do I really need to pay the $15 a week? That's a lot of money if you actually, by the end of the year, $750 just there. And as you say, there's so many other little things like that.
Yeah. The thing about the 1 million is that it gives you a peace of mind that you do not have to work for a living. It doesn't mean that you ought to stay at home and watch TV all day. I hope most people wouldn't do that. But that also means that if my dream is to be a kindergarten teacher, I can do that. Kindergarten teachers oftentimes are not paid very much, but that gives me the freedom to do what I love to do, what I think is important to do. If I weren't financially free, I would not have time to run Life is Love School. It takes a lot of my time, but it is a dream that I've always wanted to do to help childhood abuse survivors heal. And so I spent a significant amount of time coaching people, running free workshops, et cetera, and support groups. And so once you are financially free, then you have the time to do the things that you want to do. You're no longer on people's commands. I have a friend, when I was a seller, when I was just an individual seller carrying a bag with a quota, she and I were both on the same accounts. And that year, it was the crash, the big crash. So we had Chevron as one of our customers, and they cut way back on their IT spending. And they told us early on, Chevron's a great company. They said, I know you work really hard, but no matter how hard you work this year, we're not going to buy any software. It's just our policy across all vendors. So that year, I only made my base. And so did my colleague, but she was on the brink of losing her house. And she and I were at lunch, and she was super stressed out. She has 2 kids, single mom. She's like, I'm about to lose my house. And then the next breath, she told me, but last week my boyfriend and I went to Napa, and we had this really fancy lunch. It was like $150 a person. No irony there. She did not even realize that the juxtaposition of these two things and how it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who loves cars. She gets a new car every year on lease. She's like, this way I can always get the latest model on lease. Did you ever sit down and run the numbers and see what that means for you versus buying a car outright?
It's nuts, isn't it?
Right. But you see this kind of pattern over and over again. So a lot of the work that I do to help childhood abuse survivors understand is look at the pattern. In what area of your life is it not working? And then where's your responsibility? What is your part in making that happen?
Very, very smooth. And that's, if you come back to 12-step programs, what you're just doing is basically the step 4, taking an honest and in-depth inventory of what is happening. And when it comes to addictions, we look at resentments, anger, etc. You create these lists. You write down, resentments. I resent him because then he did that to me, bastard. And then after a while, you've done that list, and then you go back to that list and actually say, now let's put another column to it. What was my role in that? Where did I actually, what happened? Did I trigger something? Where was how did I behave in all that? And it's amazing when you actually ask that question and you think about resentments and you think, actually, maybe, just maybe, I have been a prick, and maybe it is I have got a role to play here as well, and therefore maybe I should make amends in that setting as well. And that is exactly what you've just described. So same thing. No, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And
I also tell people that what happened to you as a child, it's not your fault. Absolutely not your fault. It's not your fault that you were beaten up, you were sexually abused, whatever the trauma is, that's on your parents. But when you're an adult, everything you do, including what you do to other people, what you do to the money, et cetera, that's on you. You're 100% responsible. So you got to have that mindset, because there is no one else that's going to come and save you. You have to be your own hero. The world is tired of hearing, complaints. Oh, woe is me. I was abused, and therefore a lot of people had a very hard life growing up. Oprah was raped when she was raped and pregnant at just age 13, right? From destitute family background, being Black, being female, and she made it out. So it is possible, but it does take self-determination and a lot of discipline. When I was at Stanford, I had to work super hard. Not only did I have a full course load, but I also became a TA. So I was TAing classes as I was taking classes. And the reason I did that is so that I don't owe a debt when I graduate. So it covers my tuition, right? So every step of the way, you can ask yourself, am I willing to work just a little bit harder to set myself up for success? You got to think longer term. That's super important. Whether it's a diet, should I eat that cookie, or should I go for a run? Right. Every step of the way, you have to try, even though it's hard. It's hard for everyone. I prefer to eat a cookie and watch TV instead of going for a run. A lot of times I don't want to, but I make myself do it, and then try to do the hard thing the first thing in the morning when your willpower is strong.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I also want to say, don't oversave, right? Because life is also short. As in, I've seen people, and I have close people in my family that have a lot of money, real estate gurus, for example, and they're so cheap. They go out for lunch with people and they expect other people to pay, and they're by far the richest person in the room. You do not want to be that person, right? You want to spend money on things that matter, right? Help people, or invest in education, go for a trip, take people out, etc. Be nice to yourself, be nice to other people, while taking into account the longer term as well as environment, right? You have to care about the environment and don't overconsume, all these things. But it doesn't mean that you should be Ebenezer Scrooge and live like that either.
And guys, let's be quite clear here too. If you jump here in New Zealand into an airplane and decide to fly to Europe, and how many times do you think that the pilot is truly on course towards his destination? Very, very rarely, because typically that's what a plane does. You will never be 100% on the mark. And I think that's fair. Don't give yourself the added pressure. Oh my God, I've actually bought myself a coffee. And she said, I can't have a coffee. Oh my God. And you get this kind of guilt and shame. Bullshit. Everything in moderation. Please, please live your life to the fullest. And if you want to treat yourself today for a cookie and a coffee, you go for it, but savor it. Savor every little bite of that cookie. Don't take it for granted. Just say, wow, today I've treated myself, and that's cool. And tomorrow I go for a run, or even better, now I've got a cookie, give it 20 minutes, and then I go for a run. So here you go. So make sure that your pendulum swings about so. Don't go completely nuts and not spend anything for a year and then go absolutely with the pendulum the other side and go nuts. Oh, now, because I've been so frugal, now I buy myself a boat and a car and this. So that doesn't really work either, because that's the temptation, isn't it? It's really, really tricky. So have this emotional intelligence, have this kind of have the feelers in your own body out, and actually see, where are you heading? Are you stressed out, and are you using purchases to alleviate your anxiety, to make you feel better? Is that really true? And then you have to ask yourself, well, is it really that you need that bag or that whatever it is that you put your money on? Or is it actually worthwhile to say, well, why am I so stressed? What is really going on? And should we not deal maybe with the underlying problem that actually makes you so befuddled, and actually deal with that, rather than somehow numb the pain with alcohol, with purchases, with gambling, etc. So there's so many nuances there in your life that are so well worthwhile to just shed light on and reflect on. And I'm not saying don't ever buy anything for yourself. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying do everything for a reason. And if you can justify yourself why you exactly want to buy that, go ahead. Does that make sense, Yumay? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with it completely. Don't use buying stuff to mask over pain, right? Like you said, double click into why are you buying something? And if you have a good reason, go for it, right? If you want to spend some money to go to graduate school because it pays the way for the career that you really want to go for, that can help people, go for it. That's money well spent. If you want to backpack around the world so that you could see the world and get a larger perspective, go for it. If you're buying the 100th tube of lipstick thinking that's somehow going to make you more lovable, really? I think a lot of times we spend money for that purpose. Really? Does it work? Logically, we know it doesn't work. Then maybe we need to do something else rather than do that. And then the other thing I would say is sort of like when they ask you, growing up, eat your vegetables first. Here, it's generally good advice as well. Do not spend money you don't have. Right? Unless it's absolutely necessary. Like I need to go to school. I didn't have money. I need to take out a student loan. That's okay. But don't take a credit card loan to buy another bag. If you earned the money and then you saved, you paid yourself first, you did all the right thing, and you're like, okay, at the year end, I want to buy myself something nice. Go for it.
No, so true. So true. So, wow, what an interview, because we've really rattled the cage here. We've really looked at finances and at money without the emotions, without the, I don't know, there's so many layers that often are put upon money, and so many beliefs, sometimes nearly religious entrenched thoughts that are so bizarre. So it is a journey for you guys, but I think the bottom line is you need money to survive, and if you can do little steps every day to reduce the outgoings and to assure that there are a number of incomings are happening, you might be amazed where you could be in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. And if you consider wealth, someone who's wealthy being someone who is no longer needing to work and still can survive comfortably, well, would that not be a really lovely position to be in? So would it not be nice to be wealthy? Does it mean to say you have to have the $10 million house? No, no one says anything about that. Does it mean you have to drive a Ferrari? No, on the contrary. Probably there was a nice book out there, the Habits of Millionaires. And the researcher basically went around literally to millionaires and tried to figure out what are their habits, what are they, etc. And as you say, many of the things that we discussed today are habits of millionaires, because they don't drive a new car, for sure not. They don't really care too much about the house, etc., etc. You're amazed who is a millionaire out there. And these are the people who have succeeded. And why not learn from those people and take a leaf out of their book and see which of these lessons can you apply to your own life to take the stress away, so that you can live a life to the fullest without having the pressure of, oh my God, where's the money coming from? And if I don't get this next paycheck, my God, I'm going to be in trouble.
Exactly. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, money is power, right? Why would you not want to have more power? Power gives you the ability to do good things. Obviously, money makes you more who you are. So money in the wrong hands is not a good thing. But if you're a good person, if you want to do good things, if you want to take care of yourself, you want to take care of people, you want to take care of the environment, whatever cause you care about, like I care about stopping abuse, having power gives you influence and you can do things. So bless yourself with that power by having discipline, by loving yourself enough to save and invest and pay yourself first. Think long-term, because a lot of times if we just burn the money now, we don't think about what it would be like when we're 80 years old and sick and we cannot work anymore. What's the plan then?
Very true. Yumay, I'm so grateful that you came today again onto my show. This was one of the most focused interviews I've done for a long time, because we are both actually living this life. So it's actually very easy for us to talk about these sometimes emotional things like money and saving and spending. But it is, I wouldn't have it any other way. And guys, whilst Yumay has had an early start, I was financially illiterate pretty much until my 30s. Okay, so I was spend credit card debt. Yeah, hi. Who cares? I want my life now. And only then did I learn to look at things in a different way. And I wouldn't have it any other way now. It is. I'm pleased where we are as a family. And I'm pleased about the lessons that I was able to hand down to my boys. So there is this leaving the legacy. And nowadays, I'm so pleased that we talk about money in a different way compared with when I was a teenager, where the belief systems around money were very skewed and probably rather unhealthy. And now it's time for me to leave my legacy. And again, this is power. This is something very beautiful. So look at those things in a very positive way and ask yourself, what little steps can you do right now once you've stopped that interview here, listening to it? What little steps can you do right now? Maybe just write on a napkin or wherever you are on a piece of paper. Just write down, what could you look at to save yourself some money? And what could you look at as maybe additional income streams? So all kind of beautiful things are waiting for you out there, guys. Yumay, thank you very much for being such a beautiful, beautiful educator, edutainer, I should call you, because we're both having a good time here, but we're talking honest from the heart. And hopefully you guys had a good time and we planted lots of seeds in your mind, and let these seeds grow. You might act on them today, or maybe in a year's time, they come back to you and they say, actually, they had something there. And there's nothing wrong.
So I run workshops from time to time to help people. Mm-hmm. So if people are interested in learning more about how to save for freedom, I really want to help people save for freedom, especially in cases where you're really trying to leave a bad situation, a bad job, bad boss, bad partner. Have them get in touch with me. I think in the show notes, you're going to leave the Life is Love School contact. Have them get in touch with me and I'll put them in the next workshop that I host. I think, like you said, a lot of times the school, for some reason, does not teach financial intelligence, and that cripples people for life. When I ask my group members, what is something that you wish you could tell your younger self? Save and invest comes out consistently as the top.
Isn't it? Mm-hmm. Exactly. No, it's beautiful. So cool, guys. Look down there into the show notes. You're quite right. You can get in touch with Yumay through those links down there, and it's well worthwhile. Go nip over to her podcast and familiarize yourself with her beautiful Life is Love school. Life is love. It's not love is life. I always want to say it other way around.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a mouthful. It's Life is Love School because I believe that life is love school. Yeah. We're here to learn how to love ourselves and how to love other people. That's so right. Life is love school. Love.
That's right. And love is life. That's of course true too. But in this setting, no, I go with you. I heard it both ways, but I like yours better. Cool. Yumay, thank you so much for being a guest on my show again. I sent you the hugest hugs. Thank you so much for your passion. Thank you so much for all the good things you're doing.
Of course. You're very welcome. Thank you for your time.
And you guys out there, look after yourself. Bye. Dream on, dream.